Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of Cheap Shots. This is episode number 17, and on this episode I'm going to show you guys how to cheaply and quickly paint up ogres for an Ogre Kingdoms army. And as you can see here in this photo, this is what the end result of the miniature will look like by the time we get done with it. Just to give you guys some heads up about the miniature painting process, I am going to be using what is called a quick paint method for painting your miniatures. Basically, it just consists of a series of base coating and dry brushing and then using an oil wash of some sort to kind of get the details and to finish it off. And so in this video, we're going to show you exactly what steps I took in order to paint this up and at the same time save you a bunch of money in the process. And not to knock one of these guys out really quick. Just to give you an idea of how long it took me to paint up this unit, it took me about 6 hours if I was to add up all the time together. So because of that, it's a really quick process and you can quickly paint up some ogres very quickly. So with that being said, let's get this on the roll. Alright, so the very first step you need to do is to prime your miniature. In my opinion, I like to use flat white spray paint. My preferred brand of spray paint to use is called Color Place. I use flat white Color Place spray paint. You can get it at your local Walmart, it costs about 98 cents. It's a great value. You can use a lot of it to base coat your miniatures, and as you can see here, it does a pretty good job with the priming on this. So that's the very first thing you need to do is prime your miniature in flat white spray paint. Now the nice things about Ogre Kingdoms is that they have a pretty simple paint scheme when it comes to painting them up. And because they mainly fight topless without any shirts or armor, you basically need to base coat it with flesh. In this case, I use Apple Barrel's flesh paint. It is an acrylic paint that you can get from Walmart. It costs 50 cents in that place, and you just give it the once over for all the fleshy parts of the body that's being exposed. It's a nice, dark, rich, kind of tannish flesh color, as you can see in this photo. It's a really good mixture to like to use. And of course, as always, put 2 thin coats, quote Duncan Rhodes on that one, put 2 thin coats onto the miniature so that way you get a good solid base for everything. You don't really be too neat at this point because you're just getting the base coat down for this one. Alright, so step number 3 is a dry brush. Now that you got the flesh parts done, now you need to dry brush it to catch all the raised areas and to also cause some depth for your miniature as well. In this case, I like to use Ceram Coat. It's sold by Hobby Lobby. The color I like to use is Peaches and Cream. It's a nice kind of like lighter flesh tone color. It's a wonderful color to use for pale flesh characters like for elves, vampires, that kind of thing. But when you're using it for regular flesh and blood type characters, it's a great dry brush to use because it just adds that extra highlight to all over the miniature. And as you can see here, you can see the differences in the depths between the different musculatures of the miniature as well. So it's catching the highs rises with the peaches and cream, and at the same time maintaining that flesh color for the deeper tones. Alright, so step number 4, we gotta paint the pants on this one. Now, as you can see in this photo, I did take off the arms of the miniature, and the reason why I did that is so that way I can get to the spaces beneath his arms for the body. And what I like to use is Anita's all-purpose acrylic true red paint. It's got a nice vibrant red color. Now, because you're painting this on a white spray painted miniature, you will have to add 2 layers of paint on this one because you don't want to see the bleed through of the white, otherwise it comes out like a pinkish color. So 2 coats of true red. It costs about 65 cents at your local Hobby Lobby, so it's a pretty cheap paint, and you get like 2 ounces of it, or 59 milliliters, which is pretty awesome. And so as you can see, I got that nice little red color. And just like before, you don't have to be too neat at this stage because you're just getting the base coat down for the paints. So now that we got step number 4 done with the base coat, we now move on to the dry brushing for the pants. In this case, I like using Apple Barrel's Flag Red. That's kind of like a mixture between a pinkish, orangish, reddish color. That'll be the closest I can get to it. It's a nice dry brushing color to use on red surfaces because it catches the surface. So as you can see in this miniature, you can see the folds in the creases in his pants, so it's catching the raised edges and making it look more 3-dimensional. Keeping that true red color in the recesses and highlighting the mid-tones with the Flag Red. And that's the color I would recommend using for this one. And like always, it costs 50 cents, so you can't go wrong there. And once you're done with that, now it's time to go to the leather bits. In this case, for step 6, I use Burnt Umber by Apple Barrel Paints. Like I said before, it costs 50 cents. You get 2 fluid ounces. It's a great value, and it's also a really strong, rich brown color. I use this for the belting that goes around his gut plate and as well as his boots as well. I only went with 1 layer of the Burnt Umber on his boots, letting a little bit of the white to show through to give it kind of more of a tan color. And I went 2 coats on his gut plate belt to make it to a darker brown as well. So that's the nice thing about painting with a quick paint method. You don't have to necessarily put multiple coats of paint on a miniature because when you do the quick paint method, it does darken down your miniatures a little bit. So leaving a little bit brighter colors helps to kind of keep the vibrancy a little bit and not make it all look like one dark blob of whatever you're painting. So in this case, I use Burnt Umber for that effect. Alright, so now most of the miniature is basically painted. Now we're going to the more detailed aspects of this. In this case, I use antique white as well as pavement. I use the antique white to catch his teeth as well as any bony bits that be sticking out the miniature, like fangs and bones and stuff of that nature. And I use the pavement for his stone on his war club that he carries in his right hand. The reason why is because I want to make it look like kind of like a warp stone effect is what I'm going to look for his club. Make it look like he picked up a warp stone meteorite and slapped some metal on it to fight with. The lore for my army is supposed to be called the Legion of the Hellmouth. The army is supposed to be like from the Chaos Wastes, so they're a little bit more chaosy looking. So that's the kind of like story vibe I'm going with my armies for the design. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do for the weapons. So I base coat it in pavement, and both these paints are offered by Apple Barrel. I got them both from Walmart. They both cost 50 cents. Alright, step number 9 is going to be a dry brush real quick. What I'm going to do is, because I wanted to have like a warpstone look, I use Wintergreen by Apple Barrel, and I just do a quick once over with dry brushing onto the black stony part of his war club to make it look like a little bit like warpstone. So you can see that it looks kind of like this blackish, kind of greenish highlighted stone, which I imagine warpstone would look like if you were to actually see it in real life. And so just a quick dry brush on that one. Alright, so for step number 10, we're now going to do the wood shaft on his war club real quick. As you can see in this one, I use Territorial Beige by Apple Barrel paint. Once again, 50-cent tube of paint. Wonderful stuff. I just put a single coat on the war club for all the wooden ports that are on it because, you know, it's pretty simple and it looks really cool at the same time. And the very last detail we need to do for this guy is step number 11, which is all the stitching as well as cord and rope and stuff that's all over the miniature. Because I want it to pop, because I am using a quick paint method, it's going to darken down the colors a lot. So I want the nice bright mermaid blue. It's made by Ceram Coat as well. It's also sold by Apple Barrel Paint. It comes in 2-ounce fluid ounce tubes. This one costs, I think, 65 cents as well. So as you can see on the back of the trousers, he's got stitching in the back, so I use that to highlight the stitching on that. I also use it on the cording around his wrists as well as the wrappings around his weapon as well. So that way it has a nice kind of bluish color. It kind of breaks up a little bit of the reddish colors I've been mainly focusing on for the army and make it a little bit more pop that way. And that's what I use for that. So that's step number 11, just base coat it. I just did one coat because there's no point doing 2 coats because the white undercoat kind of helps it brighten up a little bit. Alright, so for step number 12, we start going into the metallics. In this case, we start off with the silver on this one. So I used 2 types of silver for this miniature. I used Anniversary Silver Anniversary. It's made by Folk Art. Same thing with Gunmetal, made by Folk Art as well. They're both offering, I got these from Hobby Lobby. They cost 75 cents a piece there. They come in 2-ounce fluid ounce tubes as well. And I like using for the metallic paints. It's a nice cheap metallic paint and has a really good effect on it as well. As you can see, I used the gunmetal weapons for his weapons, like his war club as well as for his iron fist, because they're going to be darker and more weathered down with more use. So because that gunmetal is a nice darkerish metallic color, I use for that one. And for his gut plate, I based the entire thing in Anniversary Silver because I want to make it look like a little bright vibrancy to add some flair to this character, because it's going to look a little drabby with the other color scheme otherwise, so that's what I used. And I also used the gunmetal on his boots as well. The ogres have like these steel toes that they have on their boots. I use that as well to highlight that color. Alright, so the next color I went with for the metallics is Copper. It's also made by Folk Art as well. It's a metallic paint. It costs 75 cents at Hobby Lobby. And I use this to pick out some additional details. Like as you can see on his gut plate, he actually has plates of metal that are riveted to his gut plate to make kind of like a face. You can see there's eyes and nose and the teeth on it. So I use that to kind of pick those out on top of his armor plating just to break up the silver color for his gut plate. I also use the same copper color to act as the handguard for his iron fist as well, to break it up a little bit as well. Make it look like he stuck some steel plating and, you know, sharpened steel and just kind of bolted it onto his copper colored iron fist. What I went for, and it's a nice rich darkish red copper color. It's a really good color base to use, and I just put 1 layer of paint for all the parts I wanted painted in that copper color. And that's step number 13. And the final step I use for the paints for metallics is step number 14, which is a base coat. I use just pure gold by the Folk Art metallic paints as well. I wanted to break up the monotony of his gut plate a little bit, so you can see there across the middle of his plate there's a solid band of metal. It looks like he used to fuse his 2 parts of his gut plate together with. So I used that to paint pure gold to paint that bit, and then I also did the outside rim of his metal as well to make it a little bit more broken up and add some detail to it. And once again, just 1 coat of pure gold does the trick for me on this one. And the last bit of detailing I do on this miniature to kind of break up the colors, I use Viking Blue, that's made by Apple Barrel Paints as well. As you can see, this one is a 77 bottle, scent bottle that I got from Michael's Ooh, years ago, years and years and years ago, I got this one. I think it's like 10 years ago. Now, Viking Blue isn't really made by Apple Barrel Paints anymore. However, they do make a dark storm blue is what it's called, which is pretty much the same kind of color, and that costs 50 cents. So technically speaking, it's cheaper now than it was back then. But anyways, I love this Viking Blue color. I use it for all the rims of my Necromunda miniatures, and I also want to use it for the gut plates on these guys to kind of break up the color a little bit. And what I used for this one is I did the lower half of his gut plate, right where the teeth portion is on the face that he bolted onto his gut plate there, to make it look like a gaping maw on that one. And I just did, I actually had to do 2 coats on that one because I put it over a silver paint, so it kind of bled through a little bit, so because I added a quick second layer to it. Really quick paint job on that, and it's completely done. As you can see, the miniature actually looks pretty good just by itself, with just the dry brushing and the base coating that we've done. Now we're done with all the dry brushing and the base coating for the miniature. Now it's time to wash it. And like I said at the beginning of the video, we are using a quick paint method, which means that we're going to take the entire miniature and wash it with an oil-based wash. In this case, a lot of people recommend using Army Painter's Quick Shade Strong Tone in order to do this quick paint method, which is a great product. It does a wonderful job. The only problem is it costs like $32 per can. So I'm not a big fan of the price. After all, my name is Commander Cheapskate, not Commander Moneybags. So because of that, I decided to use a cheaper alternative, which is mid-wax poly shades. In this case, I use a Mission Oak color. It's a nice reddish brownish color that's perfect for the color scheme that I'm looking for. I do a 2 parts paint thinner to 1 part poly shade mix in order to get this nice kind of syrupy consistency to it. And then once you get that wash made up, you just give it an all-over wash over the entire miniature. As you can see in this photo as well, the miniature, the oil wash seeps into the different crevices in the miniature, into the different creases and folds. It flattens the colors down a little bit to blend all of your dry brushing and your base coating together into one seamless level layer. And it just does an absolute fantastic job. It picks out all the rivets and all the details on it, and when it dries, it looks amazing. Now, the only problem with it, because it is a polyurethane and it's also an oil-based wash, it does leave this sheen or a shine to the miniature as well. Now, if you like that candy coating shine to it, by all means, you can skip the next step and just proceed to basing miniatures. I mean, people like that. Me, on the other hand, I don't like that shiny look. I like to keep it a little bit more matte. So because of that, we're going to move on to the next step for step number 17. And what you're going to do now is spray it with some matte varnish. So like I said, step number 17 is this matte spray. I use Krylon's matte finish. In my opinion, it does a really good job of flattening that sheen and also flattening the glare on it. So because of that, as you can see there, once you spray it with that matte varnish, all the details, all the layers, all the textures is really brought out a lot on the miniature once you do that, because the oil wash has done its job of getting to those recesses. It does a perfect job of blending all the colors as well. And like I said before, because the quick shade method does tend to darken down your colors a little bit, all those brighter colors that we use, like the mint green, the turquoise that we use from the mermaid blue, the bright red, it all has kind of muted it down a little bit, makes it look more like a realistic color, and it looks really nice and weathered and dirty at the same time. And step 17, matte varnish. You can get this stuff at your local Walmart for about $3.99, so it's good stuff. So now the miniature is done with, now it's time to work on the base in this case. So the rest of this is dedicated just for the base in the miniature. In this case, I'm going to go for kind of like a mountainous, kind of rocky type of terrain that these guys are coming from. According to the lore of Ogre Kingdoms, these guys come from the steppes of the World's Edge Mountains and the Badlands. So because of that, I wanted to create like a stony kind of rocky wasteland type of vibe. So the first thing I do is I just base coat the entire base in pavement paint. It's the same pavement paint color that we use for the weaponry on this ogre. It's made by Apple Barrel. It costs 50 cents a tube as well. And I just give one giant coat of the pavement all over the base. Now you can see some white poking through from the primer that I use beneath it. That's perfectly fine because, like I said, it's supposed to be very rocky and mountainous looking. And when we get down the next step, dry brushing it, it's going to blend in anyway. So just give it a quick once over. Make sure that you get large chunks of your base done in pavement, and then you're ready to move on to the next step. All right, so that takes us to step number 19. We're still on the base, and this time we do a quick dry brush. I use Granite Gray by Apple Barrel Paint. It's almost a white color. It's a really light gray. So light, in fact, it's almost white. Just maybe a hair shorter from being white altogether. It's an excellent color to use to create ice effects, also to do stone, in my opinion. So I just do a quick, nice dry brushing real quick all over the entirety of the base, which I used sand and glue in order to make it happen. I've done videos about how to cheaply base your miniatures. You can check that out in my description. And so I just do a quick once over with the dry brushing for the Granite Gray. It brings a lot of the textures. As you can see there, it doesn't matter if any of the white undercoat shows through the black because it looks like it's part of the stone. And it's a wonderful effect, and it does a really good job as well. And it only costs 50 cents per tube. So now that the dry brushing is done, the last thing you need to do is to coat the rim of the base and to paint it up. In this case, I like using Anita's acrylic gray. Now, the reason why I use this one is not because I like the properties of this gray color and any grayer than apple barrel. The reason why I use this is because my friend forgot it at my house years ago, and he's like, just keep it, and so that's why I have it. Usually it retails about 65 cents at Hobby Lobby, but if you're not going to use this gray color, you could easily use Apple Barrel's gray paint as well, which costs 50 cents. But I have this stuff, so I used it, and then I rimmed the base of the base with this color. Now, you will need to do 2 coats of this because the gray is a little bit transparent, so 2 layers will do you just fine. And as you can see, the miniature is pretty much done at this point. Alright, and here is the end result of what the miniature will look like when it's done. As you can see, it looks really good. It's got a good dry brushing, good layering, it's got a great base. It looks really, really great. All the details are brought up by for the oil washing, and this miniature is done. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you the side profiles as well as the back of the miniature. And as we do this, we're going to talk about exactly what the cost difference would be between the 2 different methods. Alright, so if we were to paint this same exact miniature using the same paints and materials from Gamesworkshop and other paint shops as well as other hobby stores, this is what it's going to basically run you in terms of cost. First of all, you'll need to buy yourself some Army Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone, which runs you about $32. You'll also need to buy Citadel's Minotaurum Varnish Spray for your matte varnish on your miniature, which costs you $19.50. You'll also need to buy Citadel's Corax White Spray for the primer on this one, and that runs you $17. Now, once you get done using that for the rest of the Citadel paints for the metals, you'll need Lead Belcher Iron Breaker for the metal and steel parts. You'll need Fulgurite Copper for the copper colors, as well as Rutru Armor for the armor bits. And each one of those little tubs of paint, they run you about $6.10 a piece. After that, to do the rest of the flesh as well, you need to buy Kislev Flesh for the highlighting, which costs you $4.55. You'll need to buy Temple Guard Blue for the coating, which costs you $4.55 as well. And the same price applies for all the rest of the colors as well. You'll need Mephiston Red for the pants, Mechanica Standard Gray for the base. You'll need Celestia Gray for the highlighting of the dry brushing of the base. You'll need Acadian Flesh Tone for the base coating of the flesh. Evil Scun Scarlet for the dry brushing on the pants. Rhinox Hide for the leather bits. Ushapti Bone for the teeth. Abandoned Black for the pavement that he's walking on, as well as for his weapon. Karak Stone in order to do the highlighting for all the tan portions. And finally Sybarite Green as well for the warp stone effect on the weapon. Now, all those paints I just named off for Citadel, they all cost $4.55 for all those base and layer paints as well. By the time it's all said and done, you're looking at a grand total investment of $147.50 in order to paint up your army with these colors, this unit with these colors. And of course, I'm not including sales tax wherever you might live, or shipping costs if you decide to ship it in. And as you can see from the left, front, back, as well as right profile, I did a pretty good job with the cheap paint to the style I did. And $147.50 is what it's going to cost you in order for you to paint up this unit. Alright, so let's go and talk about the CheapSkate method real quick. As you can see, I have the entire unit of Ogres finally painted. All 6 of the miniatures are painted up. And let's go and talk about exactly what the cost would cost you in my CheapSkate method. So first off, you would use Minwax Polyshade Mission Oak in order to do the quick paint method. That runs you $7.99. That is the most expensive thing that is on this list. Next, for your matte varnish, you'll need to buy Cryon Matte Spray, which costs you $3.99, as well as a can of flat white spray paint from Color Place, which runs you 98 cents for the primer. Now, for this flesh tone highlights, I use Ceramacoat Peaches and Cream, which runs you 75 cents, as well as Serum Coat Mermaid Blue for the cording, as well as the wrappings for the weapons. That costs you 75 cents as well. Now, for the metallic paints, all 4 of them are from Folk Art. Those paints are Gunmetal for the dark metal, Anniversary Silver for the light silver, Copper, as well as Pure Gold, and all 4 of those will run you 75 cents a piece. And then, of course, when you do the painting for the pants with the base coating, that's 65 cents for Anita's True Red, as well as 65 cents for Anita's Gray for the basing of the miniature as well. Now, the rest of it is all Apple Barrel paints, and each one of these run 50 cents a piece, and for 2 ounces of it, so you actually get like 3 to 4 times as much as the Games Workshop stuff. Flesh is the name of the color. red flag, you'll need flag red, you'll need for the dry brushing. Burnt umber, you'll need for the leather pieces. Antique white for the bone. You'll need pavement for the base, as well as any black parts of the miniature. You'll need winter green if you want to do the same warpstone effect like I'm doing for my weapons. You'll need territorial beige for the detail work, as well as granite gray as well, and all those cost 50 cents. And the grand total for my cheapskate method to paint up this entire unit would cost you $22.76, as opposed to the other method, which is going to be $147.50. Now, excluding taxes and shipping and handling, you're looking at a grand total difference of $124.74. You actually have enough money saved up by doing it this way to actually buy a Games Workshop game or a starter box set. You know, there's maybe a couple, $10 or $20 short of buying one of those. So as you can see, I'm saving you close to over $100 on using the method for my cheapskate method, and that's how I go about painting my Ogre Kingdoms miniatures. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest news about our hobby. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. You guys stay classy. We will catch you guys on the next one.